Well, alright, here we is out here working on the back end of this here 6-liter motor. The hydraulic release bearing is now mounted inside the bell housing, and so this is a, from what they tell me, from what Renegade Hybrids tells me, this is a factory GM Corvette bell housing, and this is the adapter plate that they build to go from the bell housing to the Porsche torque tube. And naturally the clutch that you put in here has a face that matches the Chevy LS flywheel and pressure plate, but the splines match the drive shaft that comes out of the torque tube in the Porsche. So that's all well and nice. I just wanted to have this thing on here, test fit it, make sure everything fits. So far so good. The clutch isn't on there yet, just the flywheel. We'll get to that hopefully later today. But one thing that for some reason I probably would have totally forgot about engine dowel pins. This engine didn't have any and I didn't even think about it until last weekend, and I thought, wow, because it's the first LS engine I ever built, and it's been a while since I did this stuff, so sometimes this stuff escapes me a little bit. But anyway, I found some ITC billet dowel pins on Summit and ordered them up. And I ordered a bunch of fuel system stuff that I needed. So that's a separate thing. Doesn't have anything to do with the engine going in right now. So, but this would. I mean, the problem that I was envisioning is if you put the bell housing on there, it can kind of just move around, any kind of way within the size of these bolt holes. The dowels keep it dead on, so that way the center of this hole is the same as the drive shaft, so the pilot bearing doesn't have to put up with any extra load or anything. But yeah, I almost totally didn't do that, but thanks to Summit. I mean, I ordered the stuff Sunday night and it was here before lunch today. Today's Tuesday, so we got those dowels in. Probably the next thing we're going to try and do is put the clutch dowels in the flywheel, which is a little trickier because they're a press fit. I'll let you look at the this is the hydraulic cylinder bleed line here. That's the pressure line there. That's what it looks like from inside. Basically, this is the release bearing that rides on the clutch, and it has a hydraulic cylinder that pushes in on. This is what a lot of circle track racers use. I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, it's fine for a circle track car or any race car really, because a race car, it's not that uncommon that you pull a trans out or you pull an engine out. This is a street car. So when this thing goes bad, guess what? The whole engine's got to come out, which means the whole front suspension's got to come off and everything. So not a big fan of this, but it's the way Renegade did it, and I don't see any other easy way to do it. So we're going with it. So hopefully this all works out. Next thing we really want to do, like I said, is get the dowels in the flywheel. Once that happens, we can bolt the flywheel on permanently and torque it down. Then we can bolt the clutch on, get that all torqued down. Then we can mount this on the torque tube in the car, and that'll be a couple more things knocked off the list. Hopefully by the weekend we'll be able to bolt the engine in there permanent like. Okay, success. Today must be dowel pin day. We successfully got the engine to Bellhousing dowel pins in, and I figured I'd have another go at putting in these clutch pressure plate dowel pins into the flywheel. It worked pretty well. That's them in there. This is a press fit, so the other end of this is a little bit larger diameter than this. This is what goes through the clutch pressure plate. And basically what I did is I had them in this bag here in the freezer since last Saturday. Well, Saturday before last Saturday actually. And I got a 9/32 deep socket here, and that was just enough to go over the smaller part but still push in the inner part. That got it down flush, and then I just, you know, whacked it a couple times with this small ball peen hammer, and that put it in there the rest of the way. This one here I got a little buggered up, probably have to file that a little bit. But there's the pressure plate, here's the clutch. There. That's where the pins go. Now it's not going right on there, so I hope there's no issue. But you never know with these things. Next we'll get the flywheel on there and all torqued down, then we can test the clutch pressure plate. Actually, probably just throw the disc in there just in case this is difficult to get off again. That way we'll just nail it on there and that'll be that. Okay, well that went pretty well. Get the flywheel bolts torqued on. These are just the original bolts that were on the torque converter. I mean, on the torque converter, on the flex plate when I got the engine. And according to the instructions in the Renegade Hybrids kit, which I guess is Chevy factory specs, is you torque on the 15 and 37 and 74. And you basically go in a crisscross type pattern. You know, just get it snugged down so that the flywheel is against the crankshaft first and then start torquing them down. And I went over them 3 times on the final torque sequence, so that's good to go. I put a little bit of assembly Loctite on there since these don't have any washers or anything on them, and it should hold just fine. I lucked out. Actually, one of the tools that I got with this car, this 944, was the factory Porsche flywheel locking tool, which, guess what? You can make that work on an LS motor. You really don't need both bolts. I mean, really just one on this side, so you're trying to force the flywheel that way when you're trying to torque the bolts, so this just kind of falls in there and bites right in. So yeah, done deal. Well, things were going smoothly. Now we've run into big problems here. I have flywheels on and torques down. I have the pressure plate on the flywheel. I don't have the clutch disc in it or anything. I just figured I'd stick it on there with one bolt, put the Bellhousing on it, see how everything works. And as you can see, we are not seated yet, and things started to get a little hard. Not to mention that springy thing on the release bearing makes it a pain in the ass to get the thing to go on there. I don't know how we're going to do it under the car, but we'll find some kind of way of doing it. I ended up putting a couple of long bolts in just to guide it in there, and then humping the thing to get it to where you could get some bell housing bolts to bite. But anyway, here, I'm going to go turn the crank and you can listen. Yeah, hear that? I believe that's the pressure plate touching the bell housing. So, we're going to give Renegade Hybrids a call, see what they say. Well, there we go. It's all taken back apart again. We called Renegade Hybrids. They wanted some pictures because they had never heard of this before. Actually having, so what's happening is the pressure plate was actually touching the bell housing when you had like about a 1/4 inch still to go for the bell housing to mate to the block. So took a bunch of pictures, then I took it apart just to make sure I wasn't crazy. It didn't do anything stupid, so it's all right. This is the flywheel. This number here says, not sure if that's an S or what. Could be a 6. 6000-165-142 0420. It doesn't really say much anything else on the other side except Center Force, made in USA. So we'll send Renegade Hybrids the pictures and see if they can come up with anything.